This video is not really about a 4.5-foot cartoon lord with a bowl cut and a dating game show. It's about you, and the very specific psychology of trying to possess beautiful things, because something inside you suspects that without them, no one would ever look at you twice. Lord Farquaad has roughly 7 minutes of screen time in a film that runs an hour and a half. He is one of the most studied villains DreamWorks ever produced, and he barely shows up. That's not an accident. The character is so dense, so completely realized, that 7 minutes is all he needs. Every frame he occupies is doing psychological work. To understand what is actually happening with Farquaad, we have to look at who he was before the camera ever found him, because everything he does in the film is the result of a wound the film never bothers to explain. You can read it on his body. He stands 4 feet 6 inches tall. His head is too large for his frame. He is consistently shot from below, so the audience can watch him crane his neck to look up at everyone he speaks to. Shrek, Fiona, his own knights. Every interaction in the film forces him into the posture of a child being addressed by an adult, and his entire kingdom is designed to compensate for it. The throne is too high. The statues of him are massive. The castle is the tallest structure on the horizon. The architecture exists to lift him into a stature his body refuses to give him. Psychologists have a name for this pattern. It's called the Napoleon complex, and it traces back to Alfred Adler's foundational work on what he called the inferiority complex, which is the idea that human beings, when they perceive themselves as deficient in some important way, develop entire personality structures organized around overcompensating for that deficiency. Adler's insight was that the compensation often becomes more visible than the original wound. The inferiority is hidden. The overcompensation is loud. So when you see someone who appears obsessed with status, with control, with the appearance of dominance, you are not looking at a confident person. You are looking at someone who is so afraid of being perceived as small that they have organized their entire existence around the appearance of bigness. Farquad is the archetype. He is the inferiority complex, animated. And here's the part that makes the diagnosis sharper. Modern research, particularly the work on what evolutionary psychologists like Mark Van Vugt have explored, suggests the Napoleon complex isn't really about objective height at all. It's about perceived status dissatisfaction. It's about the gap between how big you feel inside and how big the world treats you as being. A 6-foot man can have it. A 4-foot man cannot have it. What matters is whether your nervous system has decided that you are small in the room you are standing in. And the way that decision usually gets made is early, and it is usually made for you. And it could have been for several different reasons. A father who looked through you, a classroom that ranked you and put you near the bottom, a first relationship where you were chosen and then unchosen, a moment where you stood next to someone the world clearly preferred and watched the room turn toward them, and somewhere inside you, the verdict landed. You know what it's like to walk into a room and immediately scan it for who is taller than you, smarter than you, more accomplished than you, more attractive than you, and to feel something cold tighten in your chest before you even say hello. Maybe yours looks like checking how many followers someone has before you decide how interested you are in being their friend. Maybe it looks like the way you talk about your job in certain rooms versus other rooms. Maybe it looks like the partner you chose, partly because of what bringing them into a room would say about you. Maybe it looks like the apartment you furnished for the photos before you furnished it for the way you actually live in it. Maybe it's the wedding you spent more on than you wanted to, because you needed the people who once made you feel small to see what you had become. Sound familiar? You've made that calculation too, because the brain that has decided it is small never stops scanning for evidence either way. Every interaction is an opportunity to gather proof that you have escaped the verdict, or to gather proof that the verdict was right all along. And the strategy you developed to escape it was to surround yourself with beautiful things. Watch Farquad in the dating game scene. This is the moment that unlocks the entire character. The magic mirror presents him with 3 princesses, and instead of asking what any of them are like as people, instead of asking who they are, or what they want, or whether they would even consent to this, he asks a series of cold logistical questions and selects the one that fits his specifications. He does not pick Fiona because he loves her. He does not pick her because he is drawn to her. He picks her because she is the final piece of a puzzle he has been assembling, and the puzzle is the appearance of a complete and perfect kingdom run by a complete and perfect king. She is a specification. She is a requirement. She is, technically, the legal instrument he needs to be promoted from lord to king. He literally cannot ascend without marrying royalty, and she is the most beautiful and convenient piece of royalty currently on the market. This is how the narcissistic mind processes other people. There's a concept psychologists working on narcissistic personality disorder use called narcissistic supply, the external validation a fragile ego requires to maintain its grandiose self-image. A beautiful partner is supply. A perfect house is supply. A flawless reputation is supply. These are not things to be lived in. They are mirrors that get held up to the room so the room reflects back the version of you that you cannot generate from the inside. And the trap of the narcissistic mind, the trap that defines Farquad and defines anyone running this pattern, is what therapists sometimes call the completed project mentality. The other person is not a person. They are a project that, once acquired, must remain in the exact configuration that made them valuable as supply. Any deviation is a threat. Any complexity is a threat. Any change in them, any growth, any messiness, any humanity threatens the picture. This is why Farquad is horrified when Fiona transforms into an ogre. It's because he is concerned for her. It's because she has stopped being decorative. She became inconvenient to look at. You've done a version of this, not with a princess in a tower, with the people you love. You have a version of them in your head that you fell for, or that you chose, or that you arranged your life around. And when they grow into someone the original picture didn't account for, some part of you experiences that growth as betrayal. You wanted the partner who looked good next to you in the photo. You did not want the partner who developed opinions that complicated the photo. You wanted the friend who reflected your taste back at you. You did not want the friend who started having needs of their own. You wanted the version of the person who fit the kingdom you were building. And when they became something more than that, you reacted not with curiosity, but with a quiet, controlled panic. Because the kingdom only works if everyone in it stays in their assigned role. Watch what Farquad does next. He outsources the actual rescue. He does not ride into danger himself. He sends Shrek and Donkey into the Dragon's Keep with the line that has become the most quoted moment in the entire film. Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make. Sit with that line for a second. It is the entire authoritarian psychology compressed into 13 words. The man who needs the heroic outcome, but refuses any of the heroic risk. The man who is willing to spend other people's bodies and other people's time and other people's safety to acquire the trophy that will validate him, while remaining personally insulated from any consequence whatsoever. This is what social psychologists studying social dominance orientation have spent years describing. Researchers like Felicia Prado and Jim Sidanius developed the framework to measure how strongly individuals endorse hierarchical social structures and the inequality required to maintain them. What they found is that people who score high on social dominance orientation tend to share a cluster of traits: lower empathy, lower agreeableness, a preference for legitimizing myths, narratives like meritocracy or perfection or destiny that justify why some people deserve to be at the top and others deserve to be sacrificed for the picture. Farquad is the embodiment of this. His entire kingdom runs on the legitimizing myth of perfection. Dulock is perfect. Therefore, everything not perfect must be expelled. Fairy tale creatures who don't fit the brochure get rounded up and removed. Knights who might die in the Dragon's Keep are not people. They are inputs into the perfection machine. Fiona is not a person. She is a final accessory. And he, personally, takes none of the risk and none of the cost. He just maintains the picture. You know this trap. Maybe not at the level of a kingdom, but at the level of a life. You have probably outsourced the cost of your own picture to people you love. The partner who absorbs the emotional labor of keeping your mood stable so you can perform composure to the world. The friend who hears the version of your life you cannot say out loud, while everyone else gets the curated version. The parent or sibling who quietly does the messy work that keeps your image clean. The employee or assistant or junior colleague who absorbs the chaos so your output looks effortless. You did not start out doing this. You started out wanting to look good in a room, and the architecture of looking good required other people to stand in the parts of your life you did not want to be seen carrying. That is the cost, not the obvious cost to you, the hidden cost to everyone you have quietly recruited into the staging of your kingdom. Look at Dulock itself. The kingdom Farquad built is one of the most psychologically revealing pieces of production design in any animated film. It is sterile. It is symmetrical. Every building is identical. The town square has turnstiles. There is a singing puppet that greets visitors with a song about following the rules. Don't make waves. Stay in line. The whole thing is a parody of Disneyland, and the song is a direct musical send-up of It's a Small World, which the filmmakers chose deliberately to evoke the suffocating cheerfulness of a place where joy has been mandated by management. Everything has been prearranged for the perfect appearance of a perfectly happy place, and every single piece of it is a direct projection of Farquad's interior state. The kingdom is a self-portrait. It is what the inside of his head looks like, dressed up as a town, a place that cannot tolerate anything that does not fit the brochure, a place where the only acceptable emotion is performed contentment, a place where authentic experience is treated as a threat to public order. Now contrast that with Shrek's swamp. The swamp is messy, it smells, it has weeds and mud and earwax candles and ogre toothpaste and the chaotic geography of a place that someone actually lives in instead of stages. Shrek's swamp is who Shrek is. Dulock is what Farquad needs people to think he is. One is a home, the other is a stage set. Which one is your life? Which one are you actually living in? Are you in a home or are you in a kingdom? Have you built a life that fits who you are, or have you built a life that performs who you need other people to think you are? Because the difference between those two lives looks subtle from the outside, but the cost of living in the second one is enormous and quiet and accumulating. The cost of living in a Dulock you built around yourself is that you can never relax in it. You can never let your guard down in it. You can never let anyone all the way into it, because the moment they get past the brochure, they will see what you have been working so hard to hide, that you don't actually feel as big as the throne suggests, that you don't actually feel as worthy of the partner as the wedding photos suggest, that you don't actually feel as in control as the curation suggests, that underneath the kingdom is a small, frightened version of yourself who was told once, somewhere, that they would never be enough on their own, and who has been spending decades trying to prove it wrong by surrounding that smallness with bigger and bigger objects. There's an irony built into the very name of the syndrome. Napoleon Bonaparte, the man whose name became shorthand for short man overcompensation, was not actually short. Historical records put him at 5'6" or 5'7", which was average or slightly above average for a French man of his era. The myth of his shortness was largely manufactured by British wartime propaganda, specifically the cartoonist James Gilray's Little Boney caricatures, which made him look tiny by always drawing him next to his unusually tall imperial guard. The Napoleon complex is named after a man whose smallness was a story other people told about him, and that is, in a way, the deepest truth of this entire pattern. The smallness you have been compensating for your whole life may not even be objectively real. It may be a verdict that someone else handed you a long time ago, and you accepted it as fact, and you have been arranging your entire existence around disproving it ever since. You may have spent 20 years building a kingdom to refute a sentence that was never even true to begin with. That is the real cost, not just the years of curation, the years of believing the original measurement. Here's what nobody tells you about this pattern. The kingdom does not actually solve the problem. Farquad is not a more secure man, because he sits on a tall throne. He is the same small, frightened man, now sitting up higher. The throne does not change what is happening inside him. It just raises the platform from which the same wound continues to operate. This is the secret horror at the center of the Farquad psychology, and at the center of every real-life person who runs this pattern. The acquisition does not satisfy the need. The beautiful partner does not finally make you feel chosen, because some part of you knows you arranged for them to be there. The perfect house does not finally make you feel home, because some part of you knows you assembled it for an audience. The expensive thing does not finally make you feel valuable, because some part of you knows you were trying to buy a feeling. And so the next thing has to be acquired, and the next thing. And the kingdom has to keep growing, because the moment the kingdom stops growing, the original smallness starts to become audible again, and the entire architecture only works as long as it is loud enough to drown that voice out. This is the trap. Not that you wanted nice things, that nice things became the only mechanism by which you knew how to feel like a person. Watch what happens to Farquad at the end of the film. He is, at the moment of his greatest triumph, eaten by the dragon, the very monster his system deemed imperfect and unworthy. The very kind of creature his kingdom existed to expel, devours him, in one bite. This is not just a punchline. It is the moral core of the entire film. The thing Farquad spent his whole life building the kingdom to keep out is the thing that ultimately destroys him, because authenticity, the messy, irregular, unmanageable reality of actual life, will eventually find its way past any wall. It always does. The dragon always shows up at the wedding. The kingdom always falls. In the spin-off short, Scared Shrekless, we are shown what happens to Dulock after Farquad dies. It falls into complete disrepair. It is abandoned. It becomes a ghost town, because the kingdom was never real. It was a projection of one man's ego, and once the ego was gone, there was nothing underneath it to keep it standing. That is what gets revealed about every kingdom built on this foundation. It looks permanent from the outside, while the man at the center is alive to maintain it. But it has no actual roots. It is a stage set, and stage sets do not survive the people who built them, because they were never structures, they were performances. I want to be honest with you about something. The hard part of this video is not recognizing Farquad in other people. That is the easy part. You can probably name 3 people in your life right now who fit this description with disturbing precision. The boss who builds his department around a cult of his own perfection. The relative who has spent decades arranging their family into a portrait that flatters them. The public figure whose entire visible life is so curated, it is exhausting to look at. You can see it everywhere. The hard part is seeing where you are doing the same thing in your own, smaller, quieter, more reasonable seeming way. Because you are not running a kingdom. You are not exiling fairy tale creatures from a sterile town square. You are doing it at the scale of a relationship, a household, a friend group, a feed. You are doing it in the small ways you control how the people around you appear to a room you cannot stop performing for. And the question this leaves you with is not whether the kingdom will eventually fall. It will. They always do. The dragon always finds its way in. The question is whether you are going to spend the rest of your life maintaining something that was never really protecting you, or whether you are going to do the much harder thing, which is to begin, slowly, in small ways, to let the picture be a little less perfect, to let the partner you are with be a person instead of a piece of evidence, to let the smallness inside you finally be heard instead of drowned out by the noise of acquisition. Because the small part of you is not the enemy. The small part of you is the part the kingdom has been keeping prisoner, the part that has never been allowed to come out and be loved on its own terms, the part that does not need a throne to be worth sitting next to, the part Farquad never let himself touch. Most people who run this pattern never get the moment of release. They keep building, they keep curating, they keep arranging the people in their lives into the configuration the picture requires, and they never get to discover what would happen if they put the whole project down for a single afternoon and just existed in their own life without staging it. That moment is available to you right now, not after you have built one more thing, not after you have acquired one more piece of evidence, not after you have proven the original verdict wrong, because the original verdict was never something you were going to disprove through accumulation. You were going to disprove it, if you ever did, by walking into a room one day without the kingdom and discovering that you were still there, still a person, still allowed to be loved, still not as small as you were told. The thing about the Farquad archetype is that it always ends the same way. The dragon always comes, the kingdom always falls, the man at the center is always revealed, in the end, to have been the smallest thing in the entire room, not because of his height, but because of how desperately he organized everything else to compensate for it. The film knows this. That's why it ends with Shrek, the supposedly ugly thing the kingdom existed to expel, walking out of the cathedral with the Princess Farquad spent the entire movie trying to possess, because Shrek did not need a kingdom to feel like a person. He had a swamp, messy, smelly, irregular, his. And the irony is that the swamp was the thing Farquad would have given anything to have, a life that actually belonged to him, a self he could rest inside, a home instead of a stage. You have been building a kingdom for a long time. You have a lot of beautiful things in it, The throne is high, the picture is impressive, the brochure reads well. But you know, in the quiet moments, on the Sunday afternoons, when no one is looking and no one is there to perform for, that the kingdom has not made you feel any bigger than you felt the day you started building it. You can keep building, or you can begin, today, in some small way, to let your life be the messy, irregular, unmanageable, beautiful swamp it was always going to be if you ever let it. You don't have to tear down the whole castle tonight. Just open one window. Let one person see one room you would normally have curated away. Let the original smallness be in the room with you instead of underneath the floorboards screaming, because the dragon is coming for the kingdom either way. The only question is whether, when it gets here, you are still inside it pretending, or whether you have already walked out into your own life and discovered that you were the size of a person all along. The throne was always too high. The kingdom was always too big. The brochure was always wrong about you. You were never small. You were just told you were, by someone who needed you to believe it. And you have spent your whole life building monuments to a verdict that was never even true. You can stop building now. The swamp is still there. It has been waiting for you the entire time.